validating another person's self-expression.
So sharing thoughts, validating someone.
Right.
Right.
Two-way interaction.
A two-way interaction. Great.
When two people are fully engaged,
Two people fully engaged.
not just one.
That means one of them has to be quiet.
You can keep your mouth shut.
No, I was just thinking on that, so. You want me to shut up?
You're a step ahead of them.
Shut up, Mary.
No, what Mary said is
Listen.
completely different to what Thomas said.
Right.
Thomas said two-way dialogue, and Mary said one person has to shut up. So let's have a conversation quickly. And the person who's talking has the apple, right? So I'm going to throw this apple around the room, and we'll see if we can have a conversation. Who'd like to have a conversation with me? Great. Thomas, what would you like to have a conversation about?
I don't have the apple.
Sorry, you've got the apple. So what did you want to have a conversation about? Quick, you've got to throw me the apple, I'm talking. What do you want to have a conversation about? You don't know?
I don't have an apple.
You want to have an apple? Okay, good. Why do you want to have an apple? You've got to give me the apple back.
So I have to control the conversation.
Sorry?
I have to control the conversation.
You have to control the conversation. You're going to throw me the apple because I'm talking. Why do you want to control the conversation? Quick, this is a quick game. Move with me. Why? So I said, why do you want to control the conversation?
Because I want to lead you where I want, a path that I want to go down.
Okay, you want to lead me down a path that you want to go down. Got it. Okay, so why do you want to lead me down a path?
So I can explore what you're about and what you want to create and see if that
Oh, you want to get to know me?
Yeah.
You want to get to know me? Cool. What is it that you want to get to know me?
Because I like to build relationships with people and, you know.
Oh, cool. You want to get to, you like building relationships with people. Got it. That's cool. So you're a real relationship guy, are you?
I'd like to be more of one.
You'd like to be more of one. Cool. Is that a conversation? Did we just have a conversation? So my premise to you is we did not have a conversation. We just competed for ego. And I was good at getting the apple back because I asked questions a lot. But that's still not a conversation. Many of you have been told to ask questions. He wanted to control the conversation. I wanted to control the conversation. And guess what happened to the apple? Poor old Bev's. This is the conversation. The conversation got beat up. It's bruised. The conversation's bruised. A two-way engagement like that is not a conversation. Thomas, I hear you're a relationship person. I'd love to talk to you about relationships. Would you be up for that conversation?
To do what I want to do and with the people I want to do it with. Not that it's about the money, but it's definitely to be able to not have that as an issue to worry about. And ultimately, I can't help people, you know, if I can't help myself.
So you want to be a great communicator so that you can create freedom for yourself financially and spend time with those that you want to spend time with.
Correct.
And tell me more about what freedom looks like for you.
The luxury of having ultimate control of your life.
So freedom's about you have control of your life. So if I could teach you how to be the best communicator in the world so that you could enroll as many people in your business as you like, that would help you get control of your life. Is that what you're looking for?
Absolutely.
You better give me that apple back so I can do it then. Was that a conversation?
Yes.
What was the difference?
Guys, you communicate with each other, and not against each other. You were competing before.
Say that again.
You were listening to them?
And you were, sorry, you were listening, but also reiterating back to him so the understanding was clear as to what he was trying to tell you.
You read it back, Karen.
You listened well enough that it brought clarity to the side of the conversation.
What parts of him was I talking to? That was one part, definitely.
Parts would place energy on.
So the reason I was able to get to his why, because I spoke to his head, I spoke to his heart, and I spoke to his soul, which is where his why sits. And I didn't speak to it, I just facilitated him speaking to it and telling me. It's called the 6-step communication framework. That's a conversation. How does the apple feel now? If the apple's the conversation, content, cared for. He was nurturing the apple while I was asking him questions. And not questions that it was like this, that it was competing for ego. Questions that created curiosity, that created depth, to the point where I knew, and I could keep going further, right? But curiosity to the point where I knew at the bottom of what it was that he wanted control of his life. And then it's time for me to change the energy, grab the apple back and go very direct. What most people don't understand is how to be curious and create that care for the conversation so that someone's holding the apple and they're telling you everything. And then you take the apple back and go direct and go, here's what we need to do. That's what I'm going to teach you. How's that sound? What have I just done?
Creative trust.
No, I used an apple to tell a story. Okay. So, most people have done some sales or some communication skills before. And I'm going to show you that some of the things you learned were really good, but they're very old school. Most people have been told that a conversation is about building rapport, creating a disturbance of some kind, relieving that disturbance, and then closing it. They're the basic 4 steps of sales.
Relieving the disturbance is isolating the objection, right?
Yeah, handling the objections, and then spending ages closing because you here can handle all the objections. They're just going, sign here, press hard 3 times fast, I'm out of here.
Yeah, put the objections aside and then face them at the end.
Yep.
Cool.
It's very old school and it produces about a 30% conversion rate. And the reason it presents a 30% conversion rate is because if I'm a thinker, then about 30% of the time I'm going to connect with the thinker. And we'll connect with each other and I'll give all the thinker the data they're looking for. But 60% of the time, the person I'm trying to connect with won't be a thinker, they'll be a feeler or a knower. And so I won't connect with them. And so I get a 30% conversion rate. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Did someone say no?
What happens to the other 10%?
Sorry?
I said,
The
what
other
happens to the other
10%?
10%?
Well, sometimes you're successful and sometimes you're not, right?
Oh, you just, the 30% conversion is actually 30 out of 100. So the 70% is not a conversion rate?
Yeah.
But isn't he asking, like, if you're a healer and you talk to, and then your conversion rate will be 30%.
Yeah.
And you're a knower 30%. So we're gonna talk to 30%, we're gonna have healers, thinkers, and knowers. What about the other 10%? What are they?
It's 33%.
Okay.
I told you we have a lot of primary thinking.
Sorry, I just had to get these.
I started.
33%, 33.33% of the world are thinking. And clearly Thomas is one of them.
Okay.
I didn't even know
Enough
from
said.
34%.
Yeah.
So, flick back over to the previous page. File, page number 8. And draw this with me. Human beings have 3 systems in our brains, in our bodies, and in our souls that process information. The first is our thinking system, which sits in our brain. And the thinking system wants data, it's very analytical. It takes a long time to make decisions. And when we are all, because we can all do it, when we're in our thinking systems, we look up. There. What's 12 plus 22?
That's all
See her look up then? See, Bev's not a primary thinker. She can do it. I asked Bev a thinking question. She looked up. She took a while to process it and she came back with the answer. We can do it. We can all think. But not all of us think first. At school, we're judged on our thinking. Someone in an algebra class who can think first will do really well. Someone who's a feeler won't do so well and they'll be judged as they're not very good at algebra. Which isn't actually true, they're just not very good at thinking. Yeah. The feeler will draw all the questions and they'll do really well in art. Someone who's feeler speaks from emotions. They'll tell you lots of stories. They will draw pictures. And when they're talking, they will look down. So we have this thinking system. We have this feeling system. They're both systems that help us process information. But have any of you just woken up and know you needed to do something?
Like pee?
Like,
Pee.
yeah, you think about pee? You feel pee or just go? We have a third system. It's called our limbic system. It actually also sits in the back of our brain and goes all the way down our spinal cord into our gut. Some people call it gut feeling. It's very instinctual. For the mathematically minded, Thomas, it works about 100x faster than our thinking system. So it makes very quick decisions. Typically someone in a knowing space is very calm. They will speak in bullet points. And
Look straight.
they will look straight ahead. What I'm going to do is show you what I demonstrated in Thomas, because most people in this space walk in having a thinking conversation or a feeling conversation or a knowing conversation, and it's, can you catch the apple again? It's like this. Let's stay in that space, let's stay in that space, let's stay in that space, let's stay in that space. And we just stay in one of these spaces. Where does a buying decision take place?
No.
Feeling,
No.
All three stages.
I don't know. But if I only stay in one space, I've only got a 30% chance of connecting with them. But if I know how to throw Thomas the apple and take Thomas through a process of telling me the thinking stuff, telling me the feeling stuff, and telling me the knowing stuff, then I can help him buy, right? I can connect to what is really important to Thomas, what's really important to the audience, what's really important to the person you're connecting with. Because your job in having a conversation is to allow them to connect with themselves. All I did is help him connect with himself, right? And you saw that. Now, if he connects with himself and truly, authentically shares all that stuff, what can I do with that in a caring space? I'm not trying to manipulate him, I care about that. Yes. Do I get it? In order to do that, you have to throw out this model. It doesn't work. Now, I'm about to go through what we call the 6-step communication framework. I'm going to walk through all 6 steps, and then I'm going to break down each step. For some of you,
in the sort of the learning space of doing this, do you always set up in the classroom situation going a 6-step through those 2 exercises that you just did? Using the report disturbance, relief, close, and then this, think, feel, know, and then you go into 6-step.
yes.
Okay.
The apple,
Yeah.
that's a new technique I tried out for the first time today.
Yeah, I didn't.
Because I'm always investing in myself, and my business partner told me I needed more metaphors.
Okay.
So my apple is today's metaphor. Did you like it? Thank you.
That was a nice way to put it.
So, for some of you in the room, you'll be controls in the market force styles system. Controls are going to learn this model through planning how to use it. Influencers are going to learn this model through reading it. Powers are going to learn this model through doing it. And when you see this structure, the powers in the room are going to struggle with it, because you won't know how to do something that's on a wall. You have to actually do it. So I need you to get off your dot a little bit and just sit and learn it, and I'm going to help you do it. And then the authorities in the room will need to read this much data about it before that makes sense to them. They'll need to do some reading, because that's how they learn. So I'm going to go through an experience around showing it to you, but I recognise that each of you's got a different learning style, and so we'll support you to. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Great.
And by the way, Beth wants her alphabet.
Okay, so the 6-step communication framework has how many steps to it? You guys are sharp. Holy wow. So the first objective in any conversation is to find out what the agenda is, or to set the agenda. Another language, another word. Find out what the goal is. What's the goal of getting together? What's the agenda? What's the expectations? Hey, why are we getting together?
Do you have to tell the person that, or can you ask? Like, what would you like to accomplish today? Is that...
So imagine walking into a meeting, and the first thing you say is, what would you like to accomplish today?
What's wrong with that?
Absolutely nothing.
That's a powerful question, I guess.
Except that most of the meetings you go to, you rang the person,
Yeah.
and you ask them to sit down with you.
Yeah.
Imagine walking in and saying to this person, prospect that you just met in the street, what do you want to accomplish today?
Yeah, I guess that's for later on.
No, it's not. It's part of the agenda.
Yeah.
Because the first thing you want to do is set the big picture goal. Hey, we invited you along today, Marty, to spend some time getting to know New Skin people and getting to know the Shirlaws program and showing our learning frameworks. What would you like to get out of the meeting?
Yeah, that's where I was going with.
Yeah. So there's 3 parts of the agenda. There's the goal, and then, Marty's absolutely right, there's the topic. Or another word for the topics are the specific agenda. So in a large all-day training session, Jennifer set the agenda. It's about enrollment, full energy, stages, 6 steps. She then said, grab your next page. With that as a framework, what specifically would you like to get out of today? She set the goal, she set the big picture agenda, then she asked for the specific agenda. Big picture's the goal, then there's subtopics. Then there's a third agenda. How often have you sat down with someone and you really wanted to share New Skin with them, and you said to them, hey, what do you want to get out of this conversation? And they didn't say anything about New Skin. And you're like, shit, what am I going to do now? I better throw up all over them and tell them all about New Skin. Well, there's a third agenda. It's called yours. So 3 agendas. The big picture, the goal, the specific agenda, the topics, and then yours. Now what you want to do energetically is make it about them. So you want a third party. Oh mate, some of our best clients also, when they come along to sessions like this, also want to hear about our 6-step communication framework. Would that be of value to hear today?
Absolutely.
What did I say? Sometimes some of our best clients, other people, also want to hear about this. Would that be of value today? And he said, what?
Absolutely.
So whose agenda is it now? I just made my agenda his agenda. I added a topic, but I didn't say, oh, I also want to talk to you about 6-step. Because that would be push energy. By third party to create full energy. Now what if Marty had said no?
Go back to his topic.
Well, if he'd said no, I just saved myself a bucket load of words and time. Because he wasn't going to be interested in it anyway.
That's true.
It does. So step 1 is the agenda. The agenda has 3 parts: the goal, the topic, the specific agenda, and then your agenda. Now what most people do is then go, great, oh, so you want to talk about relationships? Let me tell you all I have to tell you about relationships. And they dive into those agenda topics. So they take the apple back. You want to talk about relationships? And he took the apple back. And I took the apple back, and I now control the conversation. But what we do is add a very important step. Step 2 is the positioning step. Now there's a bridge between each step. I'm going to write the letters SCI. And it's the bridge step between each step. SCI. So next to SCI, write bridge. And SCI means summary, confirm, introduce. So Jeannie Marie heard me summarise what Thomas was saying. So great, Thomas, you want to talk about relationships. Hey, before we dive into that, hey, tell me what you know about Sherlock. Or tell me what you know about me. Or tell me what's happened since we last met. I didn't do this, but I could have done it. And what I'm trying to find out is, in plain English, why Thomas thinks we're in the conversation. Why the person you're in front of thinks they're in a meeting with you. Because I could have been having this conversation with Thomas about relationships, and he could have thought that I was a math teacher. And as I'm asking him questions about relationships, and he's thinking I'm a math teacher, what's going to happen in the conversation? In his brain.
Discredit your information.
Say that again.
Discredit your information.
I have no credibility to be having this conversation with Thomas. And he's going to be listening to me, and his brain's going to be slowly switching off and disengaging. But by putting in the positioning step, I can find out two things. Whether I'm Air India or Virgin America. Now, at this point, you're all wondering, what the hell is he talking about? So, Sam, you and I are going to India next week. We're flying Air India up the back of the plane.
Uh-oh, I hear another metaphor coming.
Come on, Sam, you know this one.
Don't. Everybody. Apple?
Do you want to fly? You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, Sam's not coming anymore. Who's flown Air India before?
She's gotten confused because you're holding the apple. Oh, you want... Okay. Sorry, partner.
Who knows nothing about Air India? Who hates flying? Great, you're coming to India with me on Air India.
I would, just because it said India.
We could go Virgin America up the front of the plane, or Air India up the back of the plane. But I'm not going to tell you that we could go Virgin America up the front of the plane. We go on Air India. What do you need to know before we leave?
How many days we're going?
Yep. What else?
What time's the flight?
Yep.
What else?
What else?
What airport?
Yep. What else?
kind of travel details, what I would bring.
Yep, what else?
Their currency,
Yep. What else?
where we're going,
Yep, what else?
what we're doing there,
Yep, what else?
when we're coming back,
Yep, what else?
how many apples we have on the plane.
Now you're starting to ask about that. What else?
Not much. I'm gonna sleep the whole flight.
I was just trying to exhaust you. Lots of questions, right? Actually, Sam, we're going Virgin Atlantic up the front of the plane. What do you want to know?
Why?
Yep. What else?
Where?
Yep.
What time? With who? When are we coming back?
Oh! That's bound to happen. We're going Virgin. We're going Virgin up the front of the plane. What questions have you got?
What time?
Ah! His only question is when are we leaving? What's the difference in your mind between Air India and Virgin America?
I'm gonna die, it's gonna stink, or I'm gonna have a great time. It's the whole flight.
So I'm going to die, it's going to stink, and you only asked about the plane at the end? But the point is the perception in his mind around Air India is, I'm going to die, it's going to stink, and it's going to... He had a bunch of questions, like a whole long laundry list of questions about going. Virgin America at the front of the plane, like when do we leave? You get the difference. That version of the exercise wasn't exactly perfect, but it's about perception in the mind of the person you're talking to. What you need to understand in any conversation is, what's the perception in the mind of the person I'm sitting in front of? Now, the person could be a room like this, could be a room with 200 people, it could be a room with 1,000 people, or it could be 2 people. Be one person. But what do they think about me? Why do they think I'm in a conversation with them? If you don't ask that question, Thomas could think I'm a maths teacher. And I'm talking to him about relationships, so I have no credibility. Most people dive into a conversation without checking in on what's their credibility. What tools have you got that could help this answer? So you say to the person, hey, what do you know about me? And they say, nothing. What tools have you got? Say that louder.
Red shirt.
Say it louder.
Red shirt.
This is where you use your red shirt. Oh, people call me a game changer. So I help people change the game they're in around relationships so they get better relationships. If I'd said that, what would have happened? I've got credibility. So you want to know why? The question to ask is, tell me what you know about me. That's to somebody you don't know. Somebody you've known forever. You might say, so you've known me as a ... but what I really am is a ... Because you might need to reposition. Someone in your downline you've been working with for years, you might call them every week. The question here is, hey, tell me what's happened since we last chatted. Jennifer Robinson and I use this framework in every conversation we ever have. We might ring and say, hey, you've got 3 minutes, I've got to talk to you about these 2 things. Hey, tell me what's happened since we last chatted. The agenda and positioning step just took 12 seconds. By the way, we did an agenda piece. With you today, we did a positioning piece. What was the positioning piece? We spent a whole hour on it. The positioning piece was, hey, tell us what's happened in the last month. Because what we're listening for is how we're positioned. Are you using the material? Have you got an outcome from the material? Imagine you'd all come and said, hey, we haven't done anything, we haven't had time. That's going to completely have to readjust how we're going to deliver the next 2 days, isn't it? If you'd come and said, you know what, you're going too slow, you didn't give us enough material, we would have had to adjust. But what we were listening for is how we're positioned.
And you hadn't been in the group.
This allowed me to know how to be today. Like, as Charlie said, you guys are a level above the last mastery group we did at the same point. So if I'd walked in here with the old expectation and old positioning, I would have walked in without that conversation and just delivered like they would have. But I'm lifting my game because you've all lifted your game. Does that make sense? I've changed, I've adjusted based on that conversation.
So on a three-way call, when my downline tees me up, is he doing the positioning for me?
Yes. Now what I'm going to show you is that these 6 steps, I'm going through the linear version, and then over here I'm going to show you an energetic version of the same thing. Because they don't necessarily always need to be in this linear order. But they do need to be in an order, and I'll show you how that plays out. Marco.
Can I get a couple more examples, maybe reposition with closer family and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I'm just going to pretend to be you for a moment. And this may not be true, but I'll pretend to be you. Hey, I wanted to chat with you. Oh, what's the topic that you wanted to talk to closer family about? Great. And how are you positioned in their mind? Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to be. So I wanted to talk to you about health and wellness in your life and a business I've been building. Can we chat about that? Yeah, what are the topics you'd like to know? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, before we dive into it, one of the things I realise is that you've always known me as a snowboarder. But what you probably don't know about me is I'm also an entrepreneur, and I've been building this business for a couple of years in the health and wellness business, but I've never really shared it with you. And that's the context I'm coming from today. What have I just done? I've repositioned. I've changed the perception in the mind of the audience as to why we're in this conversation, or who I'm being in this conversation. Making sense?
Ultimately helps to maximize the value.
Exactly. Some of you might have a downline that you've kind of neglected, or you don't feel like you have the relationship that you'd like to have. What you could do is call them up and say, I've been going through a leadership development program and I've realised that I haven't been giving you the support that I could be giving you, but I've been skilling myself up and I'm now able to help you in a different way. That's a repositioning conversation. Make sense? It's all about building credibility in the mind of the audience. You've got to check in first. What credibility do you have? Then you either have to position, reposition, or, third choice, shut up. I didn't have to position in my conversation with him because Jen had done a whole bunch of positioning for me. So I skipped that step because it had already been done. At this person, you might say to the person, hey, tell me what you know about me, and they might go, I've heard you're a rocket launcher and I've just been told I have to do whatever you say. What does if someone says that to Charlie, what does he need to say about himself at this point?
That's it.
Nothing. In fact, if he did say anything, he'd outsell himself, which has been done before. There is a fourth choice, where the person says, I heard you're in network marketing and I hate network marketing and I don't want to go anywhere near network marketing. What do you do at that point? Well, so you've actually got a couple of choices there. One choice is you could go, oh great, yeah, tell me about network marketing and what your experience is so I can understand those beliefs. Another choice might be to stand up and walk out. You go, you know what? I was here to talk to you about network marketing and clearly I don't want to do that. So rather than waste your time and my time, let's go. I've done this before where I said to someone, I've got your agenda, and I said, tell me what you know about me. And the person said, I hear you can fix my staff. Staff. My people. I said, actually, we're more like a gym than a hospital. And I like to start with the CEO, the leadership, because I believe that the fish rots from the head down. So if you want me to fix your staff, I'm not the guy for you. Rather than waste your time, I'm going to get out of your way. So instead of spending 60 minutes vomiting all over him, within 7 minutes I was out of there. 3 weeks later he rang me back and became a client. So positioning is a really critical step. Should only take, if the person doesn't know anything about you, 3 minutes. If the person knows a bucket load about you already and you like the story, they're telling you, it might take them 3 minutes to tell you how good you are. But it shouldn't take any longer than that. It should take less. Then you go, oh great, now that you know why we're in the conversation, what I'd love to do is ask some more questions around these topics. That was the SCI. So SCI again. And then we go into step 3.
Can you say what the SCI stands for?
Summarize, confirm, and introduce. So, the fact, feel, find. The fact, feel, find is when you're going from thinking to knowing. Think, feel, know. There's 4 quick key questions I'm going to show you in a fact, feel, find, but what you're doing is you're going from head to heart to gut. Only once you've got to gut can you do step 4. I was on a sales call And the client said to me, what are the next steps? And I said, look, there are 3 things I can think of. And on the piece of, on the phone, on the piece of paper in front of me, I wrote down 1, 2, 3, and then the first one was CEO coaching. And I said, look, the first one's CEO coaching, and as I'm saying that, I'm like writing the second one down, which is projects. I think out of CEO coaching, you might identify a project. The third one is, as I'm saying the third one is, I wrote down leadership development. Like I just made it up. There's always got to be 3 things, that's my rule. And the client said, oh, what I'd like to do is start with CEO coaching, and I think out of that we'll probably end up with a project and some leadership development. Like, that sounds like a great idea. Human beings think in 3s. 4 is too many. 3 sounds like you've been doing this for years and you've got a plan. You can always come up with 3. Even if you had to write one down and give your mind the space to process the next one, you'll come up with it. But I'll give you 3 already that should be training, ADR, LOI,
And connect you with somebody else in the business.
connect you with someone else in the business. Like, there's a bunch of choices. Choose one of those 3. Doesn't really matter.
Dude, that's something I use all the way through it. That 3 is 3-way. It's simple. So it's actually 2 plus connecting with someone else in the business.
Yeah.
Population. It's the simplest thing.
Yep. Now, what a lot of people do at this point is they hang up the phone. And what if they just lost?
Appointment.
They've lost another touch point. I don't want you to close, ever. What I want you to do is open up the next touch. People hate being closed. People love a relationship. Closing is what used car salesmen do, because they're focused on a transaction. You guys are in the relationship business. Just set up another touch point. A relationship is a series of touch points. So step 6 is the open. And it's the agreement. And if the person says, oh, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks, is that an agreement?
Pretty loose.
It's not an agreement. What's the chance of them getting back to you in 2 weeks?
-0.
Yeah, they've just kind of put you off. So I say, oh great, cool. If I haven't heard from you in 2 weeks, would you like me to give you a call? And they always say yes. And I go, great, I'll call you on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Does that work? What have I just done? I've created an appointment. And if it doesn't, they go, actually, no, Tuesday at 2 p.m. doesn't. I go, great. When does? And they'll give me the appointment, and I've got it back out of their control. They're not going to call me back. I now know that we've got an agreement in our calendar to connect. 6 steps. It's not 6 individual components. It's a flow. Hey Jen, I want to chat with you about what we're going to do at New Skin. Hey, what's happened last week? And by the way, I've only got 5 minutes for this call. What did they do last time? What do we need to do this week? Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about great. Oh, great. So we're doing enrollment. Great. So I'll see you at the airport. You'll pick me up. We've got the hotel rooms booked, and we're at New Skin at what time? Thursday morning. Fantastic. Well, I'll see you at 9 PM next Wednesday.
That's literally how everyone
That's
else
actually a real
goes.
conversation that we had on Monday. And how long did that conversation take?
4 minutes.
Yeah. So I tried to point it out. We've been running agenda, position, fact, field, find, presentation, summary, open around this whole day and a half. Still the same framework. No script. It's just a framework. It's a set of easy connecting steps that create a connection. Allow you to do that. The apple exercise. What step was that?
Fact, feel, find.
It was the fact, feel, find. I said to you, the positioning step was, what is a conversation? I got you all to write down what's a conversation. I then went into fact, feel, find and did an exercise with an apple. The exercise with the apple is I showed you what it wasn't when we were doing this. Then I gave you a metaphor for what it was. And then I presented this.
I like to liken that this is an anatomy of a conversation. It's the anatomy of a conversation, and it's the anatomy of intimacy. Right? It really is. The way to build conversations. I talk to Casey sometimes 5 times a day and sometimes once a week. But every time I talk to her, we run this framework. And half the time we're not talking business. We're talking about personal life, a challenge I'm having, a win I want to share. But this framework allows every single time there to be meaning. And this business we're in is one about creating meaning down to the core so people buy and stick. Charlie says this a lot, for the long haul, right? So they're here for the long haul. An anatomy of a conversation, all this does is really allow you to kind of take that, look back at the most powerful conversations you've ever had, and I bet you that this is what you did. You just didn't know it. And now we have a duplicatable way to make it happen and have 90% of your conversations be meaningful now as a result.
Stu, what's the picture behind underneath that field line? What are those letters?
TFK.
Take the notes.
Oh.
Okay. Some of you will be sitting there going, yeah, but my conversations never start with an agenda, they start with something else. You don't just walk in, unless you're Marty, and say, hey, what did you want to get out of this meeting? And so, what I want to do is show you that energetically, there's a flow. In an ideal world, we'd start with the goal, do the positioning, do the fact field find, and then present, summarise and open. But it doesn't always go that way, does it? So a couple of rules. First rule is, you can never present until you've done steps 1, 2 and 3. And the second rule is, steps 4, 5 and 6 have to be direct. You've got to be confident, you've got to know what you're talking about, you've got to use very... I'm the expert language. Oh, I know what we need to do. However, steps 1, 2 and 3 could be in any order. You ever walked into a conversation and someone's just started going blah 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 blah, and you're like going, what am I going to do with all this stuff? Have you ever had that conversation? Okay, well, in future, just know that they've started the conversation in step 3. They're in fact, feel, find. So you don't interrupt them. You ask the fact, feel, find questions, and you empty their cup. You allow them to empty themselves. And then once they're empty, you say, oh great. By the way, what did you want to get out of this conversation?
Oh, really?
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 I've done it before, many times. You go into agenda. Or you could say, oh, I get that. Now what role did you want me to play in this conversation? Wouldn't that be cool if your husbands did that? Instead of trying to solve the problem?
Instead of solving your problems.
Promote that too heavily.
So sometimes you need to do a little bit of positioning before you get the agenda. Sometimes you need to go, hey Marty, we don't know each other much. You probably don't know that I'm one of the world's best business coaches. You probably don't know that this program is specifically designed to help New Skin business. You probably don't know that it's an 8-month program. And you probably don't know that it's experiential. But with that, can I check in on what you'd like to get out of the conversation? I did a little bit of positioning. So sometimes you need to start with a little bit of positioning. Today we demonstrated that. We asked you, hey, what have you done in the last month? But in an ideal world, you start with the big picture agenda, the goal. Hey, I hear you're interested in changing careers. What are the topics you'd like to get out of a conversation with me around changing careers? The goal's the end result. Then get to the specific agenda. Then check in on position. Here's rule number 3. You have to have context in agenda, position, and fact, feel, find. And the context is curiosity. Curiosity is not the conversation Thomas and I were having the first time. That wasn't curiosity, that was ego. Curiosity is when you put your ego aside and really want to listen to who someone is, what they're going through, what their business issues are, what their life's like, real curiosity. Where you take yourself energetically out of the conversation. And in the agenda and the fact feel find, there's a couple of key questions I would want to share with you so that you can do that. Does this make sense? The flow piece?
Yes. Pause. You want to pause again.
Yeah.
Be direct with the last few steps, right? That was the key for the two. Because curiosity.
Okay, so rule number 1. Rule number 1 is that you can't do step 4 until you've done steps 1, 2, and 3. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is when you are doing steps 4, 5, and 6, you're direct. You don't beat around the bush. Rule number 3 is steps 1, 2, and 3 are curious. Rule number 4 is there's a pause after step 4. if the fundamental proposition is that human beings think, feel and know, and that what I'm teaching you to do is teaching you and your downlines how to connect to people's thinking, feeling and knowing, then you need to know how to ask the right questions that occurs. So within those 6 steps, there's 2 key areas that require curiosity. The agenda and the fact feel find. So if you turn over to the next page, I think the title is agenda. What I want you to do is draw a T-bar like that, please. So we remember that there's the goal, or the global agenda, the big picture. So this part is for the specific agenda. After you've spent a bit of time setting some context about why you're getting together and painting the big picture agenda, you then go into the specific agenda. And in our specific agenda, there are 5 key questions. What I'm going to teach you is what they are. But more importantly, I'm going to teach you why. And then I'm going to teach you how to be. So it's not just enough to know what, I want you to know why you're doing it and how you need to be energetically when you're doing it. Linda, this morning you wrote down your agenda for today's program. Do you recall that? In your workbook, Jennifer asked you to write down what you'd like to get out of this program.
Yeah,
Could you share that with me, please?
possibly.
So what I'm going to do is demonstrate it first, and then I'm going to show it to you. So, what specifically did you want to get out of the program?
Getting and holding attention, creating curiosity. Wanting to engage in the conversation, wanting to engage people in the conversation.
Yep. All right, what else?
Keeping it open for the person I'm listening to keep us safe. Is what you're saying. That's it.
All right. There's one more thing you'd like to get out of the program. What is that?
I could just have that automatic in my brain.
And
That's all.
great. So, how to get their attention, how to create curiosity, how to engage people in the conversation, how to be open, listen, create space, how to have that automatically in your brain. And if there was one more thing?
How to teach people to do that.
How to teach people. And
There is nothing else.
great. So I fundamentally believe that when I go into any appointment, it's my job to help the person I'm sitting in front of work out what their agenda is. I don't believe that human beings have time to write down all their agenda items and come fully prepared and connect to their thinking and feeling and knowing, because they don't know how to do it. It's my job to help them. So I just asked Linda 5 questions. And I don't know if you noticed it, but what Linda did is went through her head, which were the first things she had written down. She then went behind that to another layer, and then went behind that to a 3rd layer. And then she said, there's nothing else, because I emptied it. And if there was one more thing, what would it be?
There isn't one more thing. COVID.
And see, I don't assume that I've got it all. I just keep asking, and I'm completely comfortable with asking these questions. Now, I'm going to go through what the questions are, and I want you all to know that the questions themselves aren't a script. They're a set of tools. Now, there is a system behind it. I'll show you the system. But it's not a script. You don't just keep following a script. You've got to energetically kind of read where the person's at. So, what I tried to demonstrate in a why space, what I wanted to demonstrate, is that why I'm doing this is back to, I want to get Linda's thinking agenda, a feeling agenda, and her knowing agenda. I only know that when Linda says that's all. When Linda says, and she didn't, I think that's it. What would that have meant?
Still not there.
I have to ask more questions. That's all it means. And most people miss this. They're not really listening to the client. The important things to listen for are the words and write them down of what her agenda is, but the words she's using to describe her agenda. I think that's all. And by the way, she said that's it, and I got 2 more out of it. Because it wasn't it. I also didn't believe her. I wanted to check in. And so part of the questions allow you to check in on the thinking, feeling, and knowing. Okay, so question 1 was what specifically do you want to get out of this cup of coffee? What specifically do you want to get out of this program? What specifically do you want to chat about today? What specifically, doesn't matter what the ... is, it's whatever environment that is. Now, by the way, I could have 3rd-partied this. I could have stood up here and said, or Jennifer could have stood up here and said, so Charlie invited us to teach you how to enroll. And Charlie specifically told us to teach you how to create full energy, go through the stages framework, and use the 6 steps to teach you how to enroll. Whose agenda is it then? So that's creating full energy. It's not my agenda. It's not saying I'm here to tell you this. Charlie enrolled you all in this at some level. So if I'm running his agenda, then it's your agenda. I'm 3rd-parting the agenda, excuse me. Does that make sense? Charlie specifically asked me to teach you these 3 things, so I'm setting that agenda. But 9 times out of 10, you're actually trying to draw it out from me. What specifically did you want to get out of this conversation? And Linda said, I want to know how to get people's attention, I want curiosity, I want to know how to engage people in the conversation. Is that thinking, feeling, or knowing?
Thinking.
It's all thinking. So I then said, what? What was my second question?
There was one more thing.
No. That's the 3rd question.
What else?
What else? I said, great, what else? How many times could I have asked that?
A million.
Until they're empty in that space. By the way, I'm also learning what sort of personality Linda has. Because I said, great, what else? And she said, how to be open, how to listen, how to create space. And then she shut up. So instantly I know that Linda's not a primary thinker. Because a primary thinker would have had 22 more things. And if I'd gone, great, what else? They would have kept going and going and going and going. And I would have been completely okay with that because they're just emptying their cup. I'm emptying Linda's thinking. Make sense? And at some point, Linda would have emptied. In fact, this case, after one, she emptied. And then I said,
If there was one more thing.
if there's one more thing. And what that causes is the movement in these things.
What is
There's
that?
one more thing.
What does that say? Move to what?
Yeah, I'll explain in a second. If there was or is if there's one more thing, what would it be? It's open-ended. What it does, that question, assuming that you understand the system, if you understand the system, what specifically creates the thinking? What else creates the draining of that thinking to the end? The one more thing causes Linda, in this case, to move out of her head and into the next processing part of her, whatever that is. Either she'll move into feeling or she'll move into knowing. I don't care what it is, I don't need to know that. All I need to know is my questions will cause that. And then Linda said, how to have that automatically in my brain. In which case I now know that she's a knower. She doesn't want to think about it, she just wants it to be automatically there. She's telling me, give me the knowing version of this. And by the way, that was it. She didn't have 22 bullet items. Most people, when I do this exercise, I end up with a whole page or 4 pages. Linda's given me 5 things. So I now know that she's very direct, she's very quick, she processes a lot through knowing. Is that true? I don't know Linda very well. But in this interaction, I've got to know how she processes information. What's my next question?
You sure?
Okay, so yes. No, it wasn't, are you sure? If I'd said, are you sure, what would that have implied?
That you question.
That I was judging her. The last thing you want to do at this point is judge anyone. So you don't want to use yes or no, you don't want to use if there was, you don't want to use is there anything else, because that's a closed question. You don't want to say what the hell were you thinking? You don't, because that's just going to shut them down. All of those things are going to shut them down. You also do not, in the agenda, want to ask why, because that will also cause the same response. So any of those type of questions, at this point in the conversation, will just shut the conversation down. And what you're trying to do is open it. So the 4th thing I did was I said, and I could have been silent. Silence is a question. And you guys didn't see it, and Linda didn't see it, but if I was doing it using a whiteboard in front of the room, I could have put a dot on the page. And if I put a dot on the page, guess what Linda would have done with it? Filled it. And silence and a dot are just space. And space gets to be filled. Not by the person who's asking the questions, but by the answer. And my fifth question no, so there's the system again. If there's one more thing, very rarely gets one more thing. Guess what it really gets?
Another question.
Opens up that next space, so it gets as many things as there are there. And then you go back to step 2 again, go what else? And you drain that space. And then you get to step 3. So I asked the one more thing question twice, I think. Did you notice that I was asking the same questions again? Was it annoying?
No.
It was to you because you're listening to this conversation. To the person in the conversation, they may notice it, but it's not annoying. You can honestly ask what else, what else, what else, what else, and the person might notice that you're asking the same question. In fact, I get my clients, Jen gets her clients so well trained that the clients are actually, they come into the meeting going, what else? The client starts asking the question, you just sit there and shut up. And they go, what else did I want to get out of today? What else? I had one more thing too. Yeah, and let me summarise that for you, because my fifth thing is summarise and confirm. So summarise and confirm. Another way of summarising and confirming is write down the key words and repeat it back to them. And I did it. I said, so Linda, you want to get attention, curiosity, engage people, open space, and how to have that automatically in your brain. And I looked at Linda, and she nodded. Now what I'm doing energetically is I'm setting up how easy is it going to be for her to say yes if I've already got her nodding here. Energetically, I'm also going, how did it feel when I repeated it back to you?
Just felt like you cared about what I was thinking.
I actually cared about it, out of the box, out of the agenda. I'm not sitting here trying to spill my guts. I'm trying to care. And I summarised and confirmed, and then said, what else? And what Linda told me was actually the most important thing. You all know that doctors hate being doctors because the patients tell them on the way out the door what they needed to know at the beginning of the appointment. It's always the most important thing is the last thing. Because the last thing is actually the context of it all. Linda doesn't really want to be curious. Linda doesn't really want to get people's attention. Those things are probably true at some level. But I believe, and I don't know this, I'm going out on a limb here, what Linda really wants is to know how to teach people. Is that right?
Right.
That's the context. How to teach people.
How did you see that?
Because I ran a process that said, let me get the thinking agenda, the feeling agenda, and the knowing agenda, and the knowing agenda will lead me to the context. How did I know that? Because I listened until she said she was empty, and I knew that. So listen to this differently now. I want to learn how to teach people. I want to teach them how to get people's attention. I want to teach them how to be curious. I want to teach them how to engage people. And I want to be able to teach them how to be open and listen and create space. and I want to teach them how to know that automatically. Doesn't that sound very different to the first way I described it? Because that's the context of it all. Oh, do you know content context? Do you all know content context?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, this be.
Yeah. So I just got that. So, content context is...
She just learned a term, look short of board.
First,
Context gives meaning to content. Content is all the stuff going on, but the context is what makes it. This was a list of content. Getting people's attention, engaging people, curiosity, open listening. That could have meant all sorts of things, but I didn't really know what it meant until she told me. I want to learn how to teach people. Then all of that made completely different sense. In other words, I didn't have to interpret what it meant. She told me what it meant without her knowing that she told me. Is that...
yeah, makes sense.
Now, this wasn't a staged exercise, so Linda's on stage right now, and we're not role-playing, we're not pretending. This is... Am I right?
You're right.
Am I-
Correct.
And this happens every time. It's not always the last thing someone says, exactly the last thing, but it's always down the bottom. And what most people don't do is get to down the bottom. They're so busy trying to be smart and go, what smart question am I going to ask? Or what am I going to say? They're thinking in their own head, and they're not able to be with the person and run through the process and really find out what the person meant.
So is that because she gets emptied out because she gets to work hard? And then you're able to figure out exactly.
So the third why piece, so I've showed you, think, feel, know. I've showed you that we're moving through this. I've showed you that I'm getting to context. The final piece is that there's some pulses, that's a pulse. And then there's a heartbeat. There's an energy. The heartbeat or the energy is the thing that you want to try and solve first. Because if you can solve that one first, then you've got there emotionally.
Did you say you got their emotion?
You've got them emotionally.
Oh.
So get people's attention is that pulse or heartbeat. Linda?
To get people's attention is,
To teach people to be curious, pulse or heartbeat.
pulse.
To engage people in a conversation, pulse or heartbeat.
Pulse.
To be open, to listen, to create space.
Could be heartbeat.
How to have that automatically in my brain.
Heartbeat.
How to teach people.
Heartbeat.
So there's 3 heartbeats and 3 pulses. Does that make sense? By the way, the pulse is typically the thinking stuff, the heartbeat's the feeling stuff, and the context is the knowing stuff. Is this making sense? Okay. In order to be able to do this, you have to do 2 things. Just 2. Not 3. Just 2. The first is be fully present. And by that, what I mean is, I have to be so grounded in myself that I don't have to listen to any noise in my head. I don't have to be thinking to myself, what's the next smart question I need to ask? What am I going to say next? Oh my God, the kids have got to go to school and I've got to get someone to pick them up. Oh my God, I've got to get back to Charlie. Oh my God, my mortgage is due. Oh my God, how am I going to pay the bills? Oh my, whatever it happens to be. You have to let go of all of that stuff before you go into any phone call, any meeting, any presentation. Jennifer and I sit down for between half an hour and an hour every single morning before we go on stage, and we tell each other all the shit that's going on so that we can get it out of our system. We can create a context. We have one word that we take into the day, and that's the only thing that is in my awareness, that one word. Because that allows me to be fully grounded in that conversation, fully present. Does that make sense? So I go through a process every day, I ground myself. I might do it, if I'm not going to spend the day with Jen, I might do it in the shower. If I'm about to make a phone call, it's a sales call, I might do it a couple of minutes before the phone call. It doesn't matter, I do it as a practice. I've done it every day for 10 years, 11 years.
How exactly do you do it? You write it out or talk to yourself?
I talk to myself, I talk to my partner, I talk to whoever I need to
We run a
go, this
six.
is what's going on, and I run 6-step.
So Stu, you know, I know that we're here today to get ready for our new skin. So before we dive in and get ready, tell me what's been happening since last time we met. And what else? And what else? And if there were one more thing that you wanted to share that would help me understand where you are right now, what would that be? And he does it for me, right?
And then the presentation is, oh, what I hear is blah, 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 and we just choose a context. What's going on for us is typically what's going on for you in context.